So if you are in need of figuring out how to best tackle the ACT reading section, today is a glimpse into one of our classes that I taught. I talk a lot about reading strategies and different things that you can try. So I hope you find this helpful. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments and please hit subscribe. I would love to see you around. So, kind of our goals today, ACT reading, is we want to, one, of course, talk about strategy, and I'm going to go over that really lightly. And then two is going to be like, for lack of better words, it's in strategy, but it's going to be like maximizing your answers. I'm going to go over some stuff that I've seen with kids that we've kind of tweaked and then have really helped improve their score in the long run, just based on we did like a couple of tweaking things. And then other things, I'm going to kind of like give you some of the traps that I would look out for. Reading is it's one of those weird ones. And this is a good time if you have questions. I know we need to talk about timing. That's always kind of the beast of reading. And yeah, that's kind of the massive summary. So, on a high level with ACT reading, and then I will give kind of the main strategies I see. And I'm really curious for you guys to let me know, like, what strategy you've been leaning on because it's different per kid. So, for lack of better words, the ACT reading strategies, very simple. One is going to be what I would call the unicorn. It is not me. I'm not a unicorn. And what I mean by this is I have some kids that I say they're unicorns because they are Speedy Gonzalez, they are speed readers, and they read the whole passage. Here's the key word. They remember what they read. Let's not everyone remember what they read. And then they are able to successfully answer all the questions. And I had a kid, his score in reading was either like I don't know. It was either a 35 or 36. He was with me because his math was pretty low. And he was a unicorn because he would read the passage twice and remember it and then answer all the questions and then got to all the passages. This is not normal. So if that's not you, it's okay. It's not me either. Strategy number two, and a lot of people like the strategy, is like you read the first and last. I'll just say first and last. So it's pretty much you read the first and last paragraph because a lot of the meat is in those questions. Um, a lot of kids really like this. They feel like they have a little bit more control, but they're less likely to run out of timing because you guys probably know if you're in this group, you have, if you're standard timing, like 10 minutes to read a passage and answer the questions, and it gets a little bit crazy. Do they even need to read the passage or read the questions, and then scan the passage? It depends on the kid. So if you're talking about the first last, and I need real strategy names, these are the ones that kind of have come up with, but there are strategies that just don't have a good name for them. Um, I'm going to kind of map through this. They're going to go to the easy questions first and build up from there, which is really good because it leads into my third. So I'm going to show you the third one I knew. Um, One, I have become a slower reader in time. And so this has helped me out a good bit on timing, but it's also helped out a ton of kids. And if I am sitting with a kid like across my table, which I do regularly or online, we tend to play what I call experiments. And so if we don't know which is their best strategy, we are going to experiment and figure out which one they're going to score higher and feel more confident. And so this is a favorite of many that I typically try out is the not reading strategy. And what I mean by that is it's going to be pretty simple. I mean, it's obviously explains itself of like not reading, but you kind of, I won't even say skim. You like read the title and go straight to the easy questions. And we'll get to those in a minute. A lot of the easy questions are going to be the ones that have like line items, they're vocab based, or they are literally a word search. And I promise we're gonna get there. We're gonna get to some practice where I can kind of like point and go. But before we move on, and oh cool, I got another person joining us. Let me know which one you were doing right now or did on the previous test. If you've never taken an ACT, that's fine. Which is your jam? It's okay if it's combo. I have some kids like that too. not reading. Okay. Yep. I read the passage and answer. Okay. And that can work. It just kind of depends on if you're running out of time or not, or if you're remembering the passage. Like I said, I've had kids do really well with it. Okay, I'm impressed. Your reading speed is much faster than me. I write a very brief overview of each paragraph before going on to the questions, and that can work really well. I have worked with kids, and I'm not saying that you have extended time because I don't know your situation. But I have kids who have time and a half and double time, and that tends to work really well with them. But it takes a long time. Read most of the paragraphs and circle anything that seems important. Yep. And that works too. And a lot of it is going to be do not does the regular person have the time? Do you have the time? And we are going to take a little bit of time today where you're going to independently practice. And I'm going to show you how to do a timed interval as well. So we'll get there in a second. So we kind of go over the key reading strategies, and it's really, really personalized. So you have to know what's going to work for you. Because if I have a Speedy Gonzalez reader, they might score better on the unicorn, and you guys kind of get my gist. So some key things to note with the ACT reading, and you guys probably know this, but just in case like someone is watching this later, is there is ah, four passages. You guys know this. 10 minutes per passage, um, for standard timing. One of the things that I have had a lot of luck with strategy, and especially my paper testers, this is a really simple thing that you can do. So, one of the key things that you can help with timing is normally you've got to work on your internal clock, which can be really hard to do. And so, I have found like making a loud clock on your paper can be really helpful. And what I mean by that is if you have a paper test and you can write notes if you're digital, like it's fine, you can do the same thing. For example, if I know it's starting at 11 a.m. and I know I have 10 minutes per passage, I'm going to make a loud clock and a loud, like, hey, your booty needs to move on kind of notification on my paper. And maybe at the end of the second passage that I need to be on the third passage at 11:20 a.m. So I can write it at the end of the second passage. I can quickly write it at the beginning of the third passage if I'm going in order, but it is a really kind of a gut check that my booty needs to move on because typical timing issues is not based on one passage. It's based on all of them together. And we all have passages that we spend longer on, there's passages we spend less time on. That's normal. But you've got to kind of tie it up in 10 minutes. And a good way for you to study is what we're going to talk about, which is the 10-minute timed interval. And I cut me some grace. If you are a person with time and a half or double time, today, whenever I teach live, I typically do standard time. Just cut yourself some grace that you might not finish, and that's okay. So we're trying to kind of hitting the like average, kiddo. And the way you do 10-minute time intervals, and it's so easy on the reading, is you slap on a timer and you put 10 minutes on the clock. You block everything else out. I mean, you can use your phone. I don't know, but just don't be distracted by dumb things in your phone and lock in for 10 minutes and see what you can get done. If you work on that enough, I'm not saying over and over and over again, but a couple of times, your internal clock, you are going to train for the amount of time you need to answer it. And then you're going to directly check your answers after and then you'll go and find the correct answers. And more importantly, find what you did wrong and find out what you did wrong. So very simple. Please note that one passage is not graded on each test. So it kind of stinks. I mean, I know they're doing it for testing. It drives me bananas, and the ACT can watch us too. I don't like how they have the field questions. It stinks because I like statistically having all four passages graded, but it is what it is. We do not know the passage that's not going to be graded. The rule of thumb after going through a lot of training with the ACT last summer is they almost always grade the A B passages, the ones with the two like sections, but that can change. So just a heads up. So yeah, if you're frustrated about that, I feel you too. And you just got to do your best. So you really have to make sure you're getting to all the stuff. I want to go over before we kind of practice some like big like no's that I have seen really hurt kids' scores. And I found it kind of interesting. And this is kind of compiled from like not social media, although I see some on social media, but really just like working with kids in small groups and classes and one-on-one. And these are kind of the things that I've seen really hurt their scores. So just kind of be cautious of it. My first one of, we'll just say big nose. And we'll see if you kind of fall into this trap. And I promise there's be a time where you're working soon because I like, I don't know, I like to get hands on with the material to learn and I think it's helpful. So big nose. And maybe this is not you. I've had kids, they read the title of each question, not one at a time, all at one time. And so they'll read all the questions at once and go then to the passage. It's one thing to read the question and then go look for it. That's a problem. But if you're reading all the questions and then going to look for the passage, like that's not going to serve you. That's just going to confuse you. And you're like, I've never heard of that before. Well, social media has heard of that before because I've had to chat about that in my classes before. So please don't do that one. Another one that I heard actually, this was really recent. On a big no is skipping around. There's a way to do it. Skipping around. So on the math, yeah, I mean, it's fine to skip around, but we're on reading. So if you are investing time into understanding a reading passage, it's one thing if you are skipping one hard question and moving on to the next passage, but you cannot skip around constantly because you're making your brain work way hard. Like that was not a correct expression. You're making your brain work 20 times harder because you were jumping around in each passage, seeing what you can find that's really easy. Lock in for maybe at least 8 minutes loosely per passage. I would say I prefer 10, 10, 10, but at least give yourself 8 minutes per passage. If you have to flag one, fine, but do not just jump around because you are going to blur them all together because reading is so conceptual and those questions that pull into the main idea, like you are going to have to understand like what is going on. I didn't realize that kids were doing that until recently. So this is why I'm communicating this one. But yeah, just don't be skipping around. You're gonna work harder than you actually need to. Another awful strategy that I hear all the time, especially with this new version, and I've heard it preached to us, and we've always vetoed against this, is um planning to guess on one whole passage. That is destroying your score. One, it could be the one that's not graded. And two, like, I get the premise where you want to steal time for the other passages, but you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot because I've had kids who will spend like 20 minutes on a passage and they think they killed it, but they haven't practiced as much, so they don't understand that like they missed the mark. So you're putting all your eggs in one basket. Don't gamble like that. That's a bad choice. Oh, I'm trying to think of the other one. There was one that was standing out to me earlier. Mm. Oh, here's another one. If you're in the not readers, or even if you're in the unicorn readers, um, do not start with the like main idea, just questions. Go to the easy one first. I've seen people do that all the time. Just go directly to the easy questions. Okay. And then there was one, and I'm like losing my train of thought. Maybe it's just I needed more coffee today, and that did not happen. Hmm. I think that I'm about to say, if it comes back to me, I'll remember. But these are kind of your big ones that I just really want to avoid. If you guys have any big no's, you can let me know in the chat too. There was one that was like standing out to me, but it's escaping me now. That's okay. And if you've got any big no's, let me know. Okay, so I hope you learned something from those reading strategies. You can let me know. What type of writing strategies do you use? This was in a small live class, and we have a kind of an ACT series for $99 that covers a ton of strategies and also very like much gives lots of work to work on and homework and all that stuff. So if you want to go ahead and access that, it is $99. I'm going to link it below. We've had tons of success for that course. But regardless, if you're here for the free content, no judgment, but please consider going ahead and hit subscribe and like so we keep showing up in your feed. Hope to see you soon.